too.
We'll start doing one-on-one coaching.
Good idea.
I need to start carrying around I had these
TV trays.
I had a couple of them and I can't remember what I did with them.
One of the moves.
Just over.
Do you remember a TV tray?
Here's your perfect treatment. She gives me another one.
Thank you. This one I really enjoyed writing. I felt it. It felt real good.
Yeah. You're good at writing. You're good at saying them too.
So much writing today.
All right.
Nothing
Well,
like being on time and then not being on time.
Our two favorite peoples there.
I think we're gonna just start individual coaching.
I love it.
Well, I have it.
And we're on. And I'd like to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
Hello, hi everyone. How are you, Adora and Jamie? I don't know where everybody else is.
And our
maybe
very-
after.
Oh my God, it sounds like sex.
It can be. It can be made many. It can take many things. But I think that we might probably spin it in a different direction, Adara. Okay.
Yes, so that's really only the thing we have right now, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And the birthday girl just entered.
She's still
We'll celebrate
celebrating.
her all month.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. And so we will.
Umberto will be here
Yep.
about 5:06.
All right. They're going to miss. Why don't you do this opening treatment?
Yes,
and
'cause
I'll
I
do
did.
I'll do the close.
You bet. So I guess I should just look over to this side of the room. Oh, well, I'm glad that you said hoard. And there's, and I would like you to know that you now look like, my name is Charlie, and these are my angels.
Oh yeah. Let's do that. Yeah.
And this is my mistress. Okay, so enough of that. This is not live for the whole world to see. So let's just take a moment with this wonderful humor, and the collective consciousness of this entire planet right now is just spinning, and it's beautiful. So let's just take a moment to center right here. Let's anchor. Just allowing this moment to just, have its way with the quantum energy that is happening right here and right now. We do not have to wait for the morning after, because what's happening is this divine moment that has never been blessed and never been experienced the way that it is being experienced right here and right now. And I know that as we move through this evening, slowly, gently, lovingly, filled with laughter, filled with knowledge, filled with that infinite intelligence that is moving through and as everything, including the chairs in which you sit on, that is energy, that is life energy happening. It is all the frequency of the divine. So I know that tonight I already ordain as perfect, as whole, as complete. And I know that whatever needs to be said will be said, whatever needs to be heard will be heard, and most of all, whatever is needed to be felt will be felt. And so I just am so grateful for the opportunity to sit in this sea of receptivity with each and every one of us tonight. And I just say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you as we move forward from this moment to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. With pure love. So let love lead the way and the law make it so. And I release my word as law, as together we say. And so it is. Yummy. Yummy.
Okay. Just a quick little review because we have a lot to do tonight.
I'm going to be playing the part of Umberto and our other student.
So last
That-
you were supposed to write a treatment. Did anybody write one besides Jamie?
I did, I just didn't turn it
Well, you want to turn it in? All right. Well, I guess if you're not getting credit, it doesn't really matter. So, all right. So, okay. So that's that. What about you, Janet? You have one? No? It's all right.
Just get it throughout
So-
the class.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Did you work on the abundance principle that we did? Did any ahas? How's your abundance quotient?
Angels.
Angels? Yes? No? No one shares? Thank you.
Well, as I was sharing with you, Rita, my abundance aha is that the reason Jesus said, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, right, as a commandment, is that my bringing my attention to my sacred heart is what opens the wellspring that allows my divine inheritance to stream through me. God is always attempting to stream it through me. And so if I separate, I just shut down the flow. I'm still in the field, but I may shut down the flow of my receivership. And so the aha I'm getting about abundance is that my job is so much simpler than I ever thought it was. I don't have to be the queen of the universe. I have to be a child of God, know I'm worthy, and connect here, not just when I pray and meditate, but like all day long, and keep it open. And I've been using it in places where I have experiences that might otherwise have been disappointing, with other two-leggeds. And I go, wait a minute. Well, but that being is also an instrument of God, with its own. That is not the source of friendship or connection or, this is, And so I just feel such a lightness of being around really, really knowing in my bones how abundant that is. And the only reason I haven't experienced it was I kept trying to control things and I'd shut the flow off.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes.
I love it.
Flowing
Queen of the
energy. We're going to be talking a little bit about that tonight, called spiritual inclusivity. That's the word. Anyone else on abundance? Anything noticing?
Janet?
Was not able to kind of follow, so I'm just catching up now. But I do have a treatment. And I guess I can read it. I don't know. All right. Yeah. All right. Okay. No. I'm just thinking, well, I don't know. I don't usually read things out loud. I'm usually the movement. Yeah. But anyway, okay. That my heart opens beyond my wildest imagination. Deep, beautiful love, wonderful marriage, family, community, home. I am supported in an ocean of divine love, aligned. This is the place of divine love that is my life and love and family. I know and allow I am grateful for the blessings of this beautiful life. Inspired and excited, my art of mime explodes with joyful expansion, being sought after by mystics and world visionaries to express peace with grace in motion worldwide. My yoga studio and health meditation art explodes with joyful expansion of movement, health, online and locally enlightened activity. My writing, Silent Fortune, becomes a movie, sharing silence and peace as an exciting mystery, intriguing action adventure, sharing the depth of the art form of mime with the world. It becomes number one in the world. Am I supposed to say that stuff?
Why do you feel coy saying it? Coy, is that the word? Coquettish saying it. Is it because you feel like it's too big, or it's like you've never never expressed that bigness before, and it feels
Right, all at once.
Yeah, and it's like, can I really have all this? Can I really be all this? Is that,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yes, you can. So that was beautiful. It was a beautiful declaration. If it was a total 5-step treatment, you would have acknowledged, recognized the presence, and then united with it, and then did all that, and then that format, and then gave the
Okay.
thanks for it, and then released it. All right, but
Released
what
it,
you
okay.
but then let it go through your being your word.
So I'll need to.
Okay. But that was beautiful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, the universe doesn't know 5 steps, but we're just teaching 5 steps.
But the queen, and
So
so
it
it
is.
is. And the queen
So
of
it
the
is.
universe says, and so it is.
Yeah.
So I want to actually utilize Janet as a very good example of that little correspondence that they were having together about too big, because this was a little bit what we touched on last week, and that is that idea of deserving as well. And so we ask ourselves a lot, why isn't everything manifesting in our lives like we're thinking all day long, right? We're thinking, I'd like that, and that would be wonderful, and I'd love to experience this and that. And that's exactly the example. It's not good or bad or indifferent. It's just that sometimes it feels, as Janet was saying, too big. Or who am I to, that was what mine was, who am I to want all of that? Who am I to say, I want this and I want that and I want that? So it's something that we, I think, on a daily basis can work on, that self-deserving, that that we had an energy, a thing called God, a thing called good, that has given us everything to the degree in which we can what? Embody it and receive it. Or like what Adara was saying, just allowing myself not to work so hard, to just open up and allow the flow to come through me and as me and let it manifest. And that's why we're here, and that's why we're headed for. But every day, I believe, at least for myself, we need to remind ourselves every day, every moment, as many moments as we can, to say, I'm even bigger than that. Bigger than that. There is no big or small, right? In the mind that maketh all, as Emerson would tell us. So I think this is really where I'm headed, especially as a facilitator, a teacher, leader, is to remember not only self-love, but that we deserve everything. The kingdom is ours, and we are actually queen and kings of it all. But we don't have to keep working like... I'm going to get this, I don't care what, working so hard. It's been given to us. All we have to do is become the royalty that we came here to be. We inherited
And it's also
it.
what Adara was talking about before, is that opening up and allowing, that has to happen. And you can't have that if you're closed off from other people, other things. It has to all be open. And trusting that it can be open and that you're safe and that, yeah, you can have all of that, but you have to embody it. Like, can you believe that you can have all that? Can you believe that you can live like that? Can you embody that and allow yourself to just fill up with it? It's exciting.
The reason I didn't turn my treatment in is there's something in there that's deeply private to me.
That's fine.
Yeah, but when I did the homework and I went back over that little test that we took and then looked at the places where I wasn't a 5, I really got some rich fodder in terms of going in and realizing that the places I wasn't allowing the flow were places where I still had some trauma in the past that I hadn't cleared, and where my response to an outer effect was to shut down my connection with God in a moment of, oh, this isn't it, or in a moment of, oh, this is not what I want, or in a moment of, get away, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, Adara, it's really simple. The game now is keep my heart open no matter what's going on. And if I'm experiencing something that I'm not preferring, it's not that I'm namby-pamby, but I just go, oh, there are an infinite number of ways God can stream my good to me. And it's just not coming through that place. Bless them and walk on.
And leave the micromanaging
To God.
to the managing to it. So I have one little quick question. So what would be the first thing that would come to your mind? Okay, obviously, no matter who you are, no matter how advanced you are, we all have deserving issues in some form or another in the world of form. Why do you think that we would not, it's a personal question actually, why do you think we would not deserve to have everything I just Janet just said, and then everything I just said, that we have inherited the kingdom of the cosmos. And so what would be something why we would think we do not, why we would not believe it is a better question. What would make us not believe that?
I love that question because it's going to lead into what we're talking about tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, funny you should mention that. I think our parents had a lot to do with it. Because if we came in, a bright little bundle of joy, open and receptive to everything and totally happy, And then as we get indoctrinated by our parents or whatever, the guardians that kind of control us, we see what's happening to them. And I pick up the same programs
That's true.
that my mom and dad had.
Well, that's why we're in this class, is because we don't have to let that control us anymore. But you're right. It does come.
Jamie and
It does
then,
come from that.
Jamie.
I mean, to a certain extent, we were blank slates when we came here, totally in the alpha state, receptive till we were about 8 years old to anything that was told to us, anything we saw, probably in the womb too, right? So yeah. So yes, you're right.
So I'm going to give this to Jamie, but there's another question on top of that one. So, okay, I buy that one completely because we've all experienced it. It's called programming. People are spending millions of dollars a year to try to multi-billion-dollar self-help industry to get us out of our programming. So, for you personally, once you have found out that you've been programmed, what stops you from believing the new whenever that occurs?
Yeah, I think I was maybe in my mid-30s when I went to my first Psi class and got an understanding of that I was, for the first time, aware that I was running my own life, not just letting it run willy-nilly. And that's been forever ago. And it has taken me decades to let some of those programs go. I think they're so ingrained in their habits, and I have to come to classes like this to actually look at them because
Would you say that possibly you didn't know that you were programmed, that you didn't know you had those programs, that you were like what we call just living unconsciously?
Yep, I was
in
living
your program, because
in my
most people
programs.
are living, not most people, but people are living unconsciously in their programs. That's called the law of averages, and that's what shows up. Because you're living
Absolutely.
unconsciously in your program, but as soon as you get conscious about it, which you said happened when you went to Psi, you started to become conscious, right?
Right.
And then did everything shift?
Everything shifted. There was a large shift right then. And then I've looked at the experiences and the segments of my life after that. And each one has kind of taken me down a little further on that awareness road.
So it's fair to say you believe in process.
Yeah, most people
Process.
do.
You know, it's a process. He believes that this one leads to that one, leads to this one. I rest my case, Your Honor.
I'm left brain, that's why.
Yes, and this is just getting on top of it. It's good to question on top of the question. You know, you've worked with me. You know how I am. Yes.
So very much in line with what Ron was saying. For me, it's like if I deserved it, I would have it already. Like it would just show up. And I would have it, and there wouldn't be this like, well, I want it, and it's not showing up, and therefore I don't deserve it. It's like that, what is that? The future, they say the future isn't dictated by past precedent, but it's hard for a human being to conceive of what you can't see, right? And that's like our journey here, is to get to that power of belief in the unseen, that the real reality is the invisible, and the what is showing up is just like an effect of it. But it's so hard. But it's so hard to get there. It's so easy to believe in what's here than what isn't here yet.
Right. Well, first of all, the
Yeah.
quote is principle is not bound by precedent, because principle isn't. You're
Perfect.
bound by precedent because, or we are because we believe that we are, but actual principle, if we were to rely on principle, it wouldn't be bound by the past. And that's our biggest problem, is that we're relying on the past. We're
Correct.
recreating from the past, right? Whether it's a program or what. But
Well said. But then I has to go over to Umberto. One more question for you on top of that, and then I'll pass it, and then go over to Adara. Okay, here's the other thing. So on top of that, would it be fair to say, or even questionable, that some of the reasons we don't think that we deserve it is because of our past, which she was saying, but also our past events, things that we think we've done bad, or that I made choices that were not, oh yeah, talk about that.
So yes, so the old idea of karma, not how we believe in karma in the science of mind, but that it's similar in that you reap what you sow, you'll get back what you put out, and it builds, right? That they could mysteriously show up in front of you, something that you did in second grade, you pulled somebody's hair or cut something, and so like all those things haunt you, and it's not instantaneous, and it's not clearable right away. And I think a lot of that has to do with what Ron was saying, that your parents and my parents and grandparents are like, you act bad, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. Yeah, you're gonna get it. Yeah, and a lot of it too, because I grew up in Jehovah's Witnesses, is that God is going to wipe everybody out unless we follow all of the rules that are in the Bible. You will be destroyed, judgment day will come, and so there's always the idea of you pay for everything.
Okay, but now that we know that's not true, do we really believe? Do we believe that is not true?
But
Or are we still holding on
or are
to
we
that?
just going, what if? What if? Okay, Umberto, I rest my case, Your Honor. I'm through with this witness.
We got 30. Do we have 40? Listening for 40, 50? No. Anyway, what I see is before all of it was the, it's like, well, we're here, like we're here and we're part of God, and, so what do we do? I mean, if we were always part of God, then we must have left. We're here and we think we're our individual creature that in control of things and wants to be in control of things and is uncomfortable maybe in not being in control of things. So it was like the first act was to have left like the paradise. And then, if that's the case, that needs to be redressed and addressed, so that I can feel complete and that I'm totally, in the presence and full of, what created me. And so, I can have everything that I desire.
So are you talking about the metaphor of the Garden of Eden? And that we at one time were totally consumed by God and totally aware of God and aware of this power that we were. And then for whatever reason, as we were birthed, we were birthed into a world of duality. Mm. And then we left paradise. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why Ernest Holmes wrote, man was left alone to discover himself. And maybe that's what spiritual evolution is us discovering that we have always been one with God. Right. And we have always been God expressing. Right. But for some reason we had to discover it ourselves. It wasn't good enough to just walk around and just totally never have, well, I guess that's the only way I can explain it, that we're here on this earth to discover ourselves. It's part of the evolution of the species of humans, to realize their magnificence, to realize that they are that. I don't know why it happened or why we fell away or any of that stuff, but it's just a metaphor, but it makes sense to me. It makes sense that we were once, and then we kind of were birthed out, and then we were like, okay, who am I? I now have to discover who I am. I have to discover that I'm abundant. I have to discover that I'm all that God is. And it wasn't good enough for me to just know that and not have any expression of life. Like, man has to express itself. Like, we have to express ourselves.
And it's still here because, that's the co-present reality. Right. And so the ego, is still there. That we should think ourselves separate is the continuance of that. And so if the source of everything and all of the good is in recognizing the presence of abundance, which is, what creates it all, then anything that would have me think that I am an individualized, existence separate and apart from others and a separate identity would keep me from my good. Yeah. So it's recognizing the good.
We call ego, with small ego, edging God out. And then the large, like if you put capital, it's entertaining God only. Right? I love that too. So we are edging God out all the time. We are like when we're in our ego, right?
And I'm going to give
That
this
makes
to
sense.
Adara, but I just want to, on top of that too, a couple things in mind. It's that whole metaphor of the Garden of Eden when we realized that we were naked. And it's when we realized we were naked, we became afraid instead of just embracing the idea that we're free. I had a metaphor the other day that, because we asked, well, I wonder why, or Rita was saying, I don't know why. Well, some of this is making me know that it's not so important about how that all happened, that we're all sitting in this room together, right? Except for the guidance that's reaching out to say, let's evolve, let's go forward in that hand. I think of it like a burning building. It's like the house goes up into flames, the building's up in flames, and you're running to get out. And somebody goes and they reach their hand out. That's your evolution moving forward. And you stop it and you go, who started the fire? Who started the fire? Who cares who started the fire? Get out. That was the message I got during meditation. Who cares who started that fire? Who cares that we were programmed, as long as we know that we were programmed? But now we got to move forward and say, you know what? This is what happened up until now, and now I'm free. I'm free. I'm free. But how much do we really spend contemplating, how did I do that, and why did I do that? And right? If I only not, oh my God, was I that stupid that I would have and we spend all that time instead of just saying, the building's on fire, just get out. Right outside the building, you're free. There's no more fire. You're ready.
Oh, just breathe for a minute. I have a mystic's answer to that question. Well, the one that started this whole dialogue, and my hand was up a while ago, but it's not quite. That's why I'm feeling my way into where the thread is now versus the original question. Your question had to do with why, right, we think we're not worth the kingdom, right? And what I saw was the unfolding. God literally just all that is, spirit, life, mystery, deciding to come out of resting being peace state into experiencing itself. And in that instant, right, everything's birthed. And what I saw was, those of us that are old souls, this may resonate for some people and not for others, but there was a call for volunteers because everything is free will at every level of the creation. So there was a call for souls that were really in the bliss and the oneness and co-creating angelic realms, and we're all singing together and we're all fully ourselves and fully connected, right? There was a call for souls who were willing to open the gates of lower dimensions because God's intent was to become conscious in the creation. That was the purpose of the game, was for God to wake up in the creation. And what I saw in my own journey when I was going after, where's this coming from, was, so we had these brave souls who put their hands up, everybody in this room, we were one of them, and said, yeah, I'll do that for you, God. I'll drop into those lower realms and you can wake up through me. And that sounds really great in the heavenly realms. But what I saw happened is when you drop through a dimensional doorway, every dimension is like music, it's another scale. So when you drop from that bottom C into B sharp in the lower scale, literally the antenna become different. You lose the antenna or the way you perceived in the higher dimension, and antenna for that next lower dimension open. But in that first fall, what I saw in my own soul stream, in that moment of the first fall where we're all excited to do this for God and we went into the first dimensional shift, we felt like we lost God. We shifted into a dimension where that felt oneness of God wasn't there, and we hadn't yet learned how to find the way we feel God at that dimension, because there always is. And so what I saw for me is, in that moment, every soul makes one of three choices. The soul instantly says, oh, I made a mistake. I did something wrong. And I've lost God. And that starts and that helps the awakening because our vibration keeps dropping and other dimensions open, but the core belief is, I did something wrong in order to lose God. Or there's another group of souls who are like, fuck you, God, you abandoned me. And then there's a third group that's really creative that does both, you know? Right? And so that's, to me, if I don't heal that, if I don't have compassion for myself and realize that perception that I'm worthless or I'm not worthy of it is simply an error in perception. It's just an error in perception. My soul didn't know the truth, and it hadn't been done before. So I don't know if that helps, but for
That
me,
makes
it's
sense.
like a huge
I think it's you're
thing.
saying the same thing in a different way. But also, I think it takes complete surrender. I think the most glorious thing about living on this plane of action is that we get to experience the material realm from a spiritual standpoint. And I think it takes, I think it's what we came here for, to understand that we could walk through the lower planes as these, hi Amber, as these amazing, magnificent spiritual beings, and we could actually prove to ourselves that spiritual thought force is greater than material resistance. And what better place to do it than in this realm, right? But then to bring this realm up to that realm by surrendering, totally surrendering to that infinite intelligence, to that infinite love, and allowing it to pour through us and allowing it to work through us, and to get our ego out of the way and just let go and just actually say, oh my God, I get to experience all these delicious experiences of being on earth as a spiritual being. And I don't know, it's just, it could be so wonderful to let go, to actually let go and trust and have faith. And that's what I'm working on. It's just that total like surrender to it. It's like whatever's going on, even in this election, it doesn't really matter, because it's up, I was saying this to Dar before, it's up to us to bring the spiritual government to this earth. It's not up to anyone else, it's up to us. And yeah, it's nice to have people we want in office and all of that, but in reality, they're not gonna solve this. They're not gonna solve what we're talking about right now, which is gonna make us better citizens of this planet. So, yeah, surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Adara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
So, hi, welcome back.
We heard wrestling in there. I was like, what the hell is going on in
Anyway,
there?
so
Yeah, you were-
it's good. So
Yeah, these are all questions. The
think
more
they are
questions you
questions.
can ask yourself,
And they all make
And there's
sense.
no, you're not going to be able to go look at the files or go down to the county building and find out whether or not we did come this way or we had this or your things or the programming. But what is important is that we are here right now, and that we assume and take our power. That's all this is about, is remembering who we are. The only reason that we're having any difficulties is we're separated from God. And not God out there. Please always remind, there is no, Adara used it as a metaphor about God said this, and because, or not. But for...
we use that same term, that God wanted to
Yes,
express itself
self through
us, and it wanted to experience. So what is that power? It's us, but having all these different experiences, and God doesn't get to have that experience. That energy doesn't get to have that experience if it wasn't. It
Right.
has to come through us. So
even right now,
the whys and wherefores, I don't know if they're that important.
Well, it is
I don't know if
the
we'll ever
most
know.
important thing is that we're here. And that we're obviously wanting to, that's why I'm saying that sometimes we spend too much time, trying to figure out why when you're in the burning building and you want to get out. And just get out of the burning building and then discuss it. But we want to discuss it right in the midst of that, and try to think, if we figure it out, that we'll have our famous word, the C word, that control. That we get to have that control. And if we can figure it all out before we actually move, then I won't be hurt. I won't be, disappointed. I won't be any of these things for getting too excited about life and this whole thing. Rita?
I think we should go on.
I do.
I do.
That was a lovely.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so
I might even look
these are
that
just
movie
a
up.
couple of little quotes from the book, okay, and the pages are there if you want to read them. Prosperity awaits our recognition and acceptance of it. So this universe is abundant, and our only our only thing is to just recognize it and accept it. If we can't accept it, we can't accept God pouring through us and allowing ourselves to be an open vessel, then we can't experience it. Learn to draw from your spiritual bank account. So you have a spiritual bank account. It's already filled. You just haven't taken any money out, taken any of the good out. If you know. So I love that idea that when you go and you have money in the bank, you have to go get it out, or it's just going to sit there and just sit there. You don't get to do anything with it if you don't just go draw it out. So it's asking us the same thing. We have a spiritual bank account. It's our job to recognize it, accept it, and draw it out. Everything is spirit, mind, God, either visible or invisible. So everything. So sometimes people, when it comes to prosperity and all of that, they separate it because they think that God's not that, but God is everything. What happened? Oh, I guess it was the next page. Accept it. Expect it is the highest test of faith. So are you expecting it? Do you have an expectation that the good is yours, that whatever that is? That's like where the faith comes in, to actually walk through life expecting it to show up. It's right here. So, and then you have the right and ability to declare financial abundance for yourself. So you have the right, which was what we were talking about before, the right to do it, that you deserve it, and you have the right to declare it. It's not an unspiritual thing to want abundance in your life. It's not. It's your God-given right. And then put yourself into action. So you have to do something. You can't just sit there and think about it. You've got to put yourself, that doesn't mean you have to work hard. It just means you have to take what you believe or say you believe and actually walk out like that and put yourself into some sort of action. Understand the activity of mind and your creative use of it. So you're understanding how mind works, how the creative medium works, and how you get to use it, and then also know that your order has been received. Do you have any comments on this, Patrick?
Well, I was just wondered, who has that show of hands, that being raised program that you have to work for your money. It has to be, you have to work, and then how many of you had that you have to work hard for it? Yeah, I'm just curious because that's a biggie that I work with people, that they feel like we're saying that you don't have to do anything, that it just comes to you. But what we're saying is you don't have to. I come from that, but I didn't feel tortured. I just felt like if I had 3 or 4 jobs and all that money was coming in, that I deserved that, because the reason
never feel enough or never feel safe enough.
No, because I remember going into business for myself as an entrepreneur and starting an acting studio in New Mexico, and my mom just said, it was shocking. We just don't do that. Our family, we get paychecks. We come from where, somebody pays you, you do your stuff, you don't get too connected, and you just get the paycheck and you do it. So when I was saying, oh my God, I'm having a hard time and just trying to get the business started, my mom would say, you see, that's what happens when you go out and do that stuff on your own. And, and then I remember she wouldn't put it down, but she did say, boy, I wouldn't get a wink of sleep if I was depending on, starting a business and it succeeding. So, yeah.
That's good, Patrick. Thank you. All right. Share your abundance. There will be a spiritual response, and concrete good will come rushing back to fill the empty space. This is very true, because we hold on to our abundance. And we think that's when I started to tithe. I got over that because I would just give what I thought I could give. And it was fine. But as soon as I realized that I could just give and I have to put an amount on it, like an amount percentage, that was going to come back to me. It didn't matter. I just did it because I could. And it's true. Like, nature abhors a vacuum. It's like even when you're paying your bills, if you hold off and going, I'm not going to pay that yet. I'm not sure if I have enough money. As soon as you pay it, more money comes in. At least that's my experience with it. So there's a law of reciprocity, whatever they call it, circulation, that we talked about before, that really truly is a true law of the universe. And when we try to hold it back, we're just holding it back. We're holding back the flow we were talking about before. So, yeah, so I truly believe this is true. because I have experienced it. And then giving service. Well, why giving service? No matter what kind of service you're giving, because it opens you up, right? It makes you feel like you can give something. Sometimes the greatest thing to do is to volunteer, to be in. Charles Woolfolk is a really good example of that. He's always like saying, he just shows up wherever he's needed. And he said he believes that service is what's, kind of pushed him forward in life, to having that ability, that feeling of giving heart service. So, and wouldn't it make you feel more expansive if you were in service to whatever? It doesn't, not to CSL Kauai, like when you're in service to CSL Kauai, but just service in general.
I just feel on fire between the book you gave me and this class. And an aha that I got was that we are the instruments of God in action on this plane. And so it is through us. In fact, one of the books said that, Ernest Holmes had an awareness where he realized that his prosperity may come through people. They're not the source, but it's through humans. And so the whole thing about service is, if I feel separated and then I feel scarce, right, I'm going to try and control, and I want to take, and I want to manipulate, and I want to control because I'm not trusting I'm going to get. If I realize that what I am is an instrument of God, and that through me the good that is streaming, then service is my way of allowing God to use me as an instrument. And it reminds me of that wonderful, wonderful parable. The guy gets taken to heaven, and he's lived a life where he could choose heaven or hell. And St. Peter takes him in one door, and there's this table full of food and wine, this, overflowing. But all the people at the table have arms that are frozen at the elbow, and they're all starving because they can't feed themselves. And St. Peter says, this is hell. And he's like, oh my gosh, get me out of here, show me heaven. And he opens the door, and the guy says, wait a minute, I asked you to take me to heaven. He said, you are in heaven. And he saw the same table, the same people, the same food, but the difference was in heaven, people realized, well, if I can't bend my elbow, I can feed you. And they were feeding each other across the table. So the aha for me is really like, whoa, what if I just as a child of God say, I'm an instrument, and God, how do you want me to bless the world right now? What do you ask? What do you want? How do you want to bless the world through me right now?
Good question to ask yourself.
And then a note on abundance.
How can I be served? How can I serve? How can I be used?
Abundance with finances. When Rita and I were first in this teaching and in our center, the very first one, we used to, we didn't want to tithe because that would be giving money. But we wanted to give plenty of time. And it was a real interesting metaphor for that, because we kept giving more and more of our service, so that for two reasons that happened for me is the more service I gave, and though I wasn't giving very much financially, I was making that, that deal, that negotiation with it. And it's really important about this idea of giving, of the law of circulation. So what we would do is, remember, Rita, we would go give our time and give all this and volunteer so much that we had all the time in the world that we could have been using our gifts to actually make money. And so we were so busy, and there's an old saying that Edwin Gaines says that a lot of people don't like. The more time you give, the more time you have. And that's not always the greatest thing. So there's a balancing act that comes with financial abundance, because when I'm afraid to give, and I don't mean just tithing, I'm just talking about people that are afraid to give. And I'm thinking
to leave a tip, or
to leave a
spend their money
tip, or do any of the things. It's not bad. A lot of people go, they're really cheap. I was a waiter, so I spent lots of years judging you as you came to eat and didn't tip properly. We talked about you, by the way. If any of it was you, you can come over here. So the reason I'm saying that is, these people that we had, there must be really cheap, there must be all that. That wasn't true. They were scared. They didn't understand. They didn't understand to give. It was enough for them to pay the bill. You look perplexed. Is there a perplexed?
No,
I'm just,
I was also in, the food service business, and I didn't think they were scared. I kind of felt that, just like you, that they gave the best they could, what they felt the service was. So we worked really extra hard to give the best possible service without any really thought of getting the money back. But like you said, the money came.
but I don't believe that. Actually, I will dispute that. I'm back in my waiter days. No, I don't believe that. I believe certain people have their own personality about tipping, and I know that my mother, when she went out, she had to, train her friends who put $1 thinking that was okay. She had to train them to say, you don't do that. And I watched also people, because I have a little button pushed here, isn't that nice? I saw people go back and take money off the table. I've watched people go back and do that, and I've also watched us have to go back in and make up. I'm running back in. And I watched my mother with her friends go back in and put a $20 bill in because they were cheap. But I would prefer to think of them as scared so I could love them a little bit better than thinking that they were demanding that I serve them. That's not what tipping. Tipping is to ensure proper service is ridiculous. That's just a part of our way of life to go in. If you don't tip, I didn't go home and put voodoo dolls on the people that didn't. I'm just trying to explain about this thing about giving. And I don't want to make excuses for people that I have to work harder so you'll give me the tip. Does that make sense? I would prefer to think that they were scared to give their money so that I can think of them lovingly. Not that they were judging me on my, performance. Because we're just a part of it. To me, the only reason I'm even bringing this up, you guys, is because there's stuff around it. I can even tell with me right now that there's stuff, and that wasn't my intention. My intention was just to say, receiving and giving, and trust me, it all worked out because the ones that didn't do that, another person left $100 on the table, and I didn't have to go home with them. You know what I mean? They left $100 on the table. So what is that? That's the individual choice. And then there's some people that didn't believe that they should do that. That was it.
It's not like wrong or
It's
right
wrong
or
or right,
anything.
but I also don't want to give excuses for people for their, what's the word? Anyway, yeah. Yeah, for their judgment.
It's funny, you're talking about tipping and unconditional giving of service, which maybe because I was in Hawaii, we didn't, and we all needed money. We were all working 2-3 jobs, all of us, and just to live in Kauai. And, but there was this thing, maybe it's uniquely here on Kauai, that when we were, and I worked in more than one restaurant, we just were not working of course we all wanted tips, but we also wanted to share that, our talents as best as we could. So I never had, and I never thought of anybody as scared to give. Maybe I just kept thinking, oh, they can't afford it.
Yeah, so
right, we're gonna
Rita
move
just
on.
whispered to move on, but I am going to also say one thing about that. I was never hardly stiffed unless there was international. just a FYI. I was never tipped, but what I really want
Can
to
we
say.
help you?
Yeah. No.
No. Tomorrow night.
No, tomorrow night.
All right. If you can leave it here if you want, we'll give it to her.
So just on that, to go on, jump on. I know
Right,
that.
it's different.
So I'm not
Everybody's
trying to
different.
defend tipping, but I do want to say one thing about I enjoyed my job so much that's why I got such good tips. I never had to worry about that because I loved doing it so much that my bitter friends, my bitter waiters in New York, they didn't get tipped as much. And why is that? Back to energy. They put out the energy of
I think the whole point of this whole conversation is that it's energy.
energy.
Are you holding on or are you letting go? Are you letting it circulate? if you're not letting it circulate, there's something within you that thinks there's not enough. That's all. It's not
That was
bad.
kind of where I was
it's not
going with
good. It's not like a judgment, right? It's not a judgment. It's just the law of the universe. That's all it is. And how beautiful, you want to be a joyful giver. You don't want to be somebody that's doing it because you have to do it, or, even with your work, you did your work whether you got tipped or not. You didn't care. You just loved what you did. How much energy? Because money comes from everywhere. It doesn't just come from one thing. So as he's enjoying his job and creating all that beautiful energy of giving and everything, it's going to come back to him one way or another. It might not come back through the people at the table, but it's going to come back to you. Yes.
Is for me, it's what's my motivation. If my motivation is in my mind, it doesn't matter what I'm telling myself in my mind. That's my mind. If my heart says give this, then I give it. If it's not coming from my heart, then I don't. It's do you know? It's that simple.
Of course, because you can't fool the universe. If you're doing it because you're going to think you're going to get something back, or even with tithing, if you're tithing because you think you're going to get something back if you tithe, then I wouldn't tithe, because it doesn't work that way. You just do it because you can. That's all.
Tithing is not a portfolio. It's not your portfolio. It's not like I gave $15, I'll get that back 10, and then I'm going to do all the calculations.
Exactly. It's good. So this last one to me is really important, is to give to yourself. Because if you can't receive, give to yourself.
Ooh, biggie.
Right? Give to yourself. I mean, I just started learning how to do that the last, 5 or 6 years of my life, to really, since I've been here, to give to myself, to be able to accept the good, to be able to, we used to do this thing where we do 10% out, and we do 10% back to ourselves to spend. So we would live off 80%, because we thought, well, if we can tithe out, why aren't we tithing to ourselves? So, yeah, we don't do that anymore, but we do take good care of ourselves now.
We learned that from Terry Taylor, by the way.
We treat ourselves. We what?
We learned that from Terry Taylor,
right.
That he said, tip back to yourself. And that was really funny. Before he died, about a year before, we actually really like that. We stopped doing it. Why, I don't know. But we said, we really like that. And he goes, did I say that? He had no idea that it would even came out of his mouth, that we took it so seriously. He probably was making it up, Yeah, give 10%
well,
back to yourself.
every time you take yourself out to lunch or breakfast or get a massage, that's giving to yourself, right?
Well, what are you trying to say, Rita?
I'm trying to say
Massage?
it doesn't. I think if you added it up, all of it. Anyway, if you want to read more, there's on page 32 to 33 of your little book. There's more on this stuff. All right, so. The only one, this one. Oh, well, it's not the only one. Yeah, how to change your life.
Show of hands, who likes to receive? Who receives easily? I love that, though. Who likes to receive? Who wants to? Everybody goes, yes, that's me. Who receives easily? You don't even want to.
I should give one to you too. Hold on. Okay. This is called spiritual inclusivity. I think this is really important right now, that everything is spiritual and everything is one. This is a universe of wholeness, allness, oneness. Spirit is transcendent, perfect, whole, that in its infinite inclusivity harmoniously embraces all seeming opposites. So what I got from this, well, let's look at the human level. The human level, each human being is endowed with free will and can choose to experience freedom or bondage, abundance or lack, joy or misery, all of which lie in the infinite inclusivity of God. So in other words, we tend to separate. We tend to say, like when we're sick, God's not there. Or when we're suffering from some type of financial lack or something, or lonely or whatever, that we've separated ourselves from God and that God's not there. But that's not true, because God is in and through everything, even the things that we think, how can that be God? But if God is experiencing itself, then it's experienced itself through everything and everyone. So I think it's because, perhaps, and you can differ with me, that we think that because we are still maybe thinking of God as this power that is only does good things. And all the times, if we're God and God is expressing through us, and we have choice, then we have the choice to do things that aren't so great sometimes, right? Or to think things that maybe aren't in our best interest. So, but that doesn't mean God's not there. That's what I got out of this. When you read it, if you get something else out of it, let me know. But the seeming opposites in human experience, freedom and bondage, good and evil, negative and positive, can be seen not as forces in conflict, but simply two ways in which the one power can be used. So we talked about that when we had the discussion last week with Beth about why does that happen. Well, it's not two powers, it's one power, and it's all about choice and how we use it. Does that make sense? Any thoughts? I am not punished for my mistakes. Wait a minute, do I have that quote in there? I think I do. Oh, here it is. Okay. Each human being is endowed with free will and can thus choose to experience freedom or bondage, abundance or lack, all of which lie within the infinite inclusivity of God. I am not punished for my mistakes, but I must experience through the impersonal action of the law the result of the choices I make. All right? So it's not like...
Cause and effect.
Yeah, it's cause and effect. That's all it is. It's cause and effect. Does it make me a bad person? No. It just means I need to make better choices. I need to think better thoughts about myself. I need to, like, that beautiful treatment that Janet read at the beginning. I need to open and embrace that instead of thinking I don't deserve it. So it's not about being bad or good. It's about how we choose to express it, how we choose to make the choices for ourselves. Yeah. If the
Just before I came here, I was visiting with someone who has an infection, and he said, I've been seeing like things, I think they're releasing. I'm releasing stuff. And I said, no. I mean, I could see that he was thinking that and was creating negativity in himself, that's why he had this infection. And I said, no, you're just a sensitive soul, light being that has an infection. Right. So it was easy for me to see for him. So to see for myself is the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a common thing that people studying the science say. It's easy for me to see it for somebody else, but it's
Practitioners
not
used to
easier to
say
see
that
it for
too.
myself. But in actuality, when you're seeing it from someone else, you are seeing it for yourself because it's all happening in your own mind. So yeah, and that is something that people get hooked up in, that I did something wrong or there's something bad happening or whatever. And that's not the best thing when somebody is sick to do with them is to see God in them and to love them and to bring out their love for themselves. That's what we're supposed to do as practitioners. It's not about, oh, what did you do or what were you thinking or, it's not. It's about bringing them back to themselves because somehow, like that quote you read by Plotinus, was that in practitioner class? Or was
I've
it
been
here?
reading it for years. It's
Yeah.
about the idea that the pain is a cry to come home to wholeness.
Yeah.
And that's what we
'Cause
were
that's-
talking about it last week.
That's
with
our
you.
innate nature
Yeah.
is wholeness.
Yeah.
But it's all contained with this spiritual inclusivity of everything is contained in the one thing. If we thought that every time we got sick, we're out here somewhere floundering around and we're not with God, then and with the power, then how would we ever get well? Right? I mean, it makes total sense to me. So, yeah, it's all right. I'm doing a dance. I'm walking around. I look like a...
I feel like God is blocking me tonight. I'm being punished.
And what a beautiful thing to have this energy that's neutral, that doesn't
Yeah.
really care, that's just going to say yes to us. And that's, yeah, I've got this new thing about spiritual government, that we have a spiritual government, and it's run by it's not run by people. It's run by the laws of the universe and us, how we use them. And that's so beautiful. It's just, if the whole world lived by that, like if we live by Jesus's, love thy neighbor as thyself and love the Lord thy God with all our heart and all thy mind. If we live by those two commandments, this whole world would be a different place. And I think we are. And it's not about who wins the election.
Patrick's been
That's what you think.
Patrick's been using the prodigal son as a teaching point in a lot of what you've done in the class and in the things, and my aha on that lately is that we're we're actually our God when we're in full God realization, but we're created in the image and likeness of God with full free will. So what's that about? Well, we descend into these places where we're experiencing through errors in thinking or errors in choices. We experience things, that are not pleasant, and in that process, it's inevitable that we wake up. It's inevitable that we eventually, like the 12 step says, hit bottom. We hit a place where it's just like, it's inevitable we wake up. And once we wake up, we start to return back. And to me, that's the whole end of the story, where the son that stayed with the father says, why are you loving him so much when he left? And I think that's us. It's like, the Godhead that we're using our free will to return is our gift back to life. That we choose of our free will to align with God, that we choose of our free will to be an instrument of good. That's our gift back to life. So we're the prodigal.
And I think that's what we were talking about last week, Beth, is the fact that the one that stayed home that doesn't get a lot of attention. It's usually the one that went out partying and that got all that attention. The one that stayed home and did everything, good boy. Helped my father, did all this stuff, and then all of a sudden he goes out and just completely screws everything up, and he gets a party when he gets home. And so that's what we sometimes think about when people do bad things to good people. We think, why are we celebrating? Why did they get away with it? How did they get away with it? When in reality they don't. It's back to that thing. Nobody would treat anybody that horribly. If something, you could not be a loving individual. I mean, loving meaning your behavior couldn't be from that. If you really loved yourself, you could never mass extinct people. You couldn't genocide. You couldn't do any of that unless you were terribly afraid of losing power, it's the whole bully thing, right? Whole bully mentality.
One of the main errors in today's modern metaphysical movements is that they have sought to divide the indivisible being God, to exclude certain things, acts, etc., from the one present that manifests through everything. So there is only oneness. It's basically what it's saying. And then we're not going to go on to that now. We're going to take, this is perfect. So
we're going to break, and then we're going to go into forgiveness. Forgive me, for I know not what I do.
Take a break.
You got
getting a lot out of it. I am, because I sit there before I start with you guys and do my gratitude list and do my little meditation, and then I get on with you just to ground myself. Yeah?
Something came up while I was out, and it was about, I've been practicing for him, where certain of his actions will lead in, if he continues doing those kinds of actions. And it's as if it has no effect whatsoever. So I'm kind of, that's my present, challenge in my life right now. Knowing exactly what to do. On the one hand, there's, just let him have his experience, and, have it as difficult as it gets. And the other one is there must be something else.
Comments? Oh. Well, I think what you did last time really worked. Right, but also, I'm not going to do a class on parenting right now. But
just
there is help
to do
continue to do.
And sometimes it is okay to say something to someone. It really is okay to say, this is another thing for everything, not just parenting, but boundaries, spiritual, healthy boundaries
for yourself.
For yourself. And to say what does work and what does not work. There's nothing wrong with doing that. We're constantly parenting ourselves.
But it starts up here.
Adara and I were just talking about some people can receive and some people can't. And parenting is such a great experience, but always people are at different levels of evolution, and some people want to go real. We were just talking that I went out to lunch with a friend of mine, and she just wanted to have fun, and her sister who was with us really wanted to get deep into spirit. So, and so sometimes you just respect all of the whole thing and just let people be where they're at, and they'll get it. I mean, you always do
Right.
want to share your experiences with your children, but it's not always, or your husband or your wife.
All right.
All right.
Forgive.
Forgiveness. When you adopt the
The
viewpoint
F word.
that there is nothing that exists that is not a part of you, which is what we just talked about, and that there is no one who exists who is not part of you, that any judgment you make is self-judgment, that any criticism you level is self-criticism, you will wisely extend to yourself an unconditional love that will be the light of the world. So, all forgiveness is really self-forgiveness. Is what we're going to find out through this thing. Is it all is really self-forgiveness. And what we're talking about at the beginning of the class about why we don't think that we deserve certain things. There might be a part of us that hasn't forgiven something
Absolutely.
within ourselves or within somebody else. The universe exists in the eternal now, each moment complete and perfect within itself. In this universal harmony, justice without judgment is always automatic. Justice without judgment is always automatic. An infallible, universal principle. There can be no place for divine anger, unforgiveness, or punishment. There is nothing in the universe that's against us. There is only this unconditional law that just is taking care of everything. It might not take care of it immediately, because like it's what we were talking about last week, we don't see the whole eternality of it. But if we knew that that was automatic and infallible, that we wouldn't have any, there wouldn't be a place in ourselves where we felt like we had to be in judgment, or we had to be in anger, or we had to be in punishment, because it would all be taken care of. And our job only would be to love. That would be our only job. Human forgiveness is the process that frees us to live in the eternal now. It is essential that we wholly forgive ourselves and all others before real spiritual growth can flourish. Doesn't that make sense? Because if we're holding on to any kind of grudge or unforgiveness, resentment, we're stopping up our flow. And how can we grow spiritually if we're, and also because we're locked in the past. We're locked in the past if we're not forgiving. Yeah. What forgiveness is not. This is where I think people get caught up. Well, James Mellon wouldn't agree with this, because on his Sunday talk, which if you listen to Dr. James Mellon's Sunday talk from last week,
Last Sunday.
oh my God, do you all know who he is? He's like the person we studied with,
No,
and he has the
no,
Global
they
Truth
don't
Center.
know who he is.
Okay, anyway, I'm just going to tell you this quick little story because it's good.
He was our mentor, Beth, just so everybody.
Yeah, he's where we studied
where
to
we
be
studied,
practitioners
became
and ministers.
ministers.
And he's had a lot of hardship in his life in that he's a very successful man, but he had cancer and got through that. And 2 years ago, he lost his 19-year-old daughter in a car accident. And the story is he was, of course, he's devastated by losing his daughter, and he's dealing with that every day of his life. But it's not his wife, because he's gay, and they had a child together. She's she's gay too, but you understand what I'm saying. They had a child together,
They
but
have two couples.
they co-parented. They
Yeah.
co-parented these twins, Will and Nora, and so. But the mother is his exact opposite. Like, she goes after. She just goes after. She goes after, and she goes after really good.
And she's
she
really good at it.
She went after
She's
this
good at
young
it.
girl that killed her daughter with the car. Okay, it was totally the girl's fault, and she went after her with lawsuit. Okay, and James had found this song that he was going to sing on Sunday, and it was about forgiveness. His whole talk was about forgiveness, and this is so like. And he looked up the song. He didn't want to sing it, but then he looked it up, and the song was written by a woman whose daughter died in a car accident. Okay, and so he said, "Oh my God, I'm going to sing this song." And he sang. He went through his service, and right after the service, it might have been before, Pat called him, and said, I just want to let you know, I've decided to drop the lawsuit. I've decided, and this girl was intoxicated. She was 18 years old. She said, I decided that I'm not going to ruin 2 lives. And I decided that my daughter would not want that. She would not want me to do this. And so I have dropped the whole thing. If I told you how huge this was, it was like huge. So she said, I've decided to forgive her. So I go, if that can happen, anything can happen. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So what am I holding on to? So forgiveness is not forgetting. I don't know if I agree with that or not, because I think my father used to say, I forgive, but I don't forget. I think it's
And
forgetting.
you really haven't truly forgiven.
I think that's what James was saying in his talk on Sunday, that I haven't truly forgiven if I'm still remembering it. But I don't know either. So I don't know if I agree with that, because I think sometimes, but how are you, if you don't have an emotional power, it's the emotional trigger, the emotional like stuff that you have on it is the part that needs to be let go of, not necessarily that you're forgetting that it ever happened, right? So it's definitely not condoning. It's not saying that girl should, that it was okay that she was driving drunk and that she hit my daughter and my daughter was killed. It's not condoning it. It's not like saying that's good behavior, that's okay behavior or whatever. So people think that. They think if something happened, like they were raped or something really traumatic like that by saying I forgive you, I'm condoning the behavior. It's not that. It's not absolution. You don't even have the right to give absolution, right? It's not absolution. It's not self-sacrifice. Oh, like self-sacrifice, like, oh, I'm so great because I forgave and, I made this big sacrifice. It's not a clear-cut one-time decision. This is true. I don't know about you guys, but for myself, I feel like I have to forgive all the time. Like it's a constant activity of the heart. Jesus declared forgive 7 times 70, symbolizing continuously. So I think that it's a process forgiving. There's always something. There's just always something. Maybe there won't always be, but I get the idea. People think, oh, one time I'm going to forgive and then it's going to be over. That's not necessarily true. So what forgiveness is, and you can add to these if you want, byproduct of an ongoing internal healing process. So that makes sense. There's an internal healing process going on, and this is what the byproduct of it is that you forgive. An internal process and sign of positive self-esteem. Why would that be? You love yourself enough to let go and to not live in that horrible energy. Letting go of emotions attached to incidents from the past, right? So it is about letting go of the emotion. Recognizing that we no longer need our grudges, resentments, our hatred, and self-pity. It's good. No longer need to punish the people that hurt us. That's another one. Accepting that nothing we do to punish them will heal us. That's really good. Putting to better use the energy once consumed by holding grudges, harboring resentments, and nursing unhealed wounds. Yeah. So you have all this energy, and you have all your energy tied up in that. And what are you wanting to, have more abundance in your life or have a new relationship, but you're still stuck in this. And then, of course, it's moving on. So any comments on this?
I also want to add on to, I think that it's not saying that you forgive immediately. That it happens instantaneously. I think we had a similar, my brother was 40, I think, and hit by a 16-year-old who just got his license, and he ended up in his windshield, and it was just, and we sat there. Well, first of all, my mother was a mess, but we sat there, and how they get your number, I don't know, but I was in San Francisco, and that phone didn't stop ringing with every lawyer in town saying, I read in the paper that we were going to get your, brother, and then this is a lawsuit, and he's sick, And so I remember calling, because I had my thing about drugs or whatever, and I called the police officer, and I said, I need to know about this boy. Was he drinking? Was he drunk? And he says, no, he just literally got his license. And it was at 11 o'clock at night or whatever. But it didn't happen right away that we just went, oh yeah, that's fine, my brother's dead now and you hit him, and we didn't have that. But I was with Pat in this thing, because when you realize and how much pain you're going to go through by taking someone else's, like for us to take a 16-year-old boy's life, and I thought, oh, it just gives me goosebumps. The pain that he must be, that was 30 years ago, whatever it was, to think that young boy has to spend the rest of his life with my brother in his face. What would I possibly be able to do? That's why I told the lawyers, I said, stop calling here. What could I possibly do to him that he doesn't going to have to pay for the rest of his breathing life? So I think when we realize the pain that goes through, I mean, just the thought of me punishing him or getting him would be so detrimental. It goes to,
where is that
no
one?
longer need to punish people
who hurt us. Or no, this one, accepting that nothing we could do to punish them will heal us. Like, punishing that girl and making sure she pays for that is not going to bring Nora back. It's not going to heal the hurt that they feel from, from losing their daughter, right?
And then there's also times that you go away for the rest of your life into jail, and that's okay too. I mean, meaning that somebody who is paying a price for, that's the law of, we don't know their journey. Their journey could have been this part of the what do you say, the volunteer that came here, Adara, that came here to experience whatever it was. Maybe their experience is to spend the rest of their life in jail.
Well, the one that,
I mean, who knows what their
story
thing is.
Of the girl that wrote the song that he sang was, she was a mother, right, that lost her daughter, and she sent the person to jail, and then she went back and released them and went back to the judge and said, I'm retracting. I don't want this person to go to jail. I'm retracting my charges. I want them to be free, because she came to the same conclusion that she just couldn't do that. Anyway, it's quite something
But I
else.
think my point was that we still have to flush through it and go through, you stupid ass, why were you drinking? And the thing, my daughter would still be alive, and blah, blah, blah. But if we really go, for me, how I do it, I'm telling you, if I have to forgive myself. I mean, my party days were incredible in two ways. Incredible fun and incredible, really, Patrick? You really, 24 years old, putting people's life at risk with partying and drinking and driving and doing all that. So I'm real. Every day there's a breath that goes, oh, how could I possibly point a finger at anyone? But because I wasn't caught, nothing happened to me. I was blessed. I was living in grace. So I think that's an extreme. But if we all look at our lives, we've all hurt somebody. We've all broken up with somebody. We've all made somebody hurt in some way, even knowing or not knowing. So I think it is important when you forgive yourself, then you can forgive others so easily. I mean, well, let me take that last back. Not easily necessarily.
Anyway, I'll send you the link to that 21-minute talk if you care to listen
definitely.
to it. Okay. Metaphysical realizations. This is from forgiveness. Hurt and hate are harbored because we have judged that we were diminished by some deed. Okay. We feel like we were diminished by some deed. Does that make sense? Like we feel like we were less than because this happened to us. We must eventually realize that considering the truth of our being, we cannot be diminished. This was merely our chosen perception. Now that's interesting. This was our chosen perception that we were diminished. We can never, ever be diminished by anything because of who and what we are. Forgiveness hinges on our willingness to perceive and accept the larger story or the soul self's opportunities in the situation. Talk to me about that one. Forgiveness hinges on our willingness to perceive and accept the larger story or the soul's self's in opportunities in the situation. So is there a larger story that could be taking place in an incident? Maybe if you're thinking of something particularly in your own life, that you could accept a larger story. That your soul has an opportunity in the situation
Well,
in a
just-
larger story.
In general, I notice if I'm not forgiving, I mean, it's so obvious, but I'm noticing that the non-forgiveness in me is coming because I have a judgment that I'm right about something. And so I am holding on to a concrete perception that my point of view, out of all the infinite points of view, is the only truth. And that's just bullshit. You know, so when I can remind myself, I can say to the part of me, yeah, honey, I hear you, and it did feel that way to just have that experience, okay? It did feel that way to have that experience, and that's only one of an infinite number of ways of perceiving what's actually happening here. You know?
So is there a time that it's okay? I can't really find the exact question. Is it okay? We're not really suggesting that we release everybody from prison and forgive everybody and just let them go, or are we saying that? I mean, is there a time that cause and effect, such as punishment?
Well,
I mean, what we call punishment.
I don't think we're saying that. I think we
No, I'm
I
just
think
saying
we
we are.
understand that there are laws and that people sometimes have to pay the price of having broken a law. But it's what are we sending them to jail with?
Yeah, that's
Does that
always
make
been-
sense?
Yeah.
Like, you know, if somebody murders somebody, and I'm thinking of a particular person who had a murder in their family, if that person should probably go to jail because they picked up and killed somebody, right? But does that mean that I want to send them to jail with all my hatred and my venom and my, you know, and my resentment and my pain and why did you do this to me? I hope I never have to face that, but I don't know how you get through that. But they're saying yes, we have to get through that. Remember the story about the Amish people? They came in.
Oh
The
my
guy
God.
that came in and shot all those children in the Amish community, and the one little girl right before she was shot, her friends heard her, so
Reported
they were
it.
the witnesses. She said, "I forgive you." What's that?
And you know,
So-
it's interesting about triggers. We were Jamie and I were talking about what triggers us. You know, like the waiter thing. Does it trigger, and what does it push on? And we were just. But now I was thinking of. It's all subjective in so many ways. Everyone. I remember defending. You should have seen me. Well, I was probably in my late 20s, but I was like a Menendez freak, like. You know, defending them because everybody's going, put them in jail. They killed their parents, and they were just. And I was like, you don't know what parents, because I had abuse in my family, and I didn't kill my parents. But I was sitting there thinking, I could understand, I could empathize, I could understand where somebody over here did not understand that, and they're put away for the rest of their life, and that's fine too. But I remember it's all subjective when we think of people being punished or not forgiving them. And usually it always comes back to us. And even on a jury, I've been on a few juries, even on a jury, you have to work overtime to get your crap out of the way before you start to put your opinion and send somebody to jail for the rest of their life or do it whatever, because a lot of your stuff starts coming up. That's why they pretend to flush that out in the beginning, but it's still there when you're sitting in the thing. So it's fascinating.
It's a great topic. We then can separate the doer from the deed and see the gift of personal growth hidden in all pain, betrayal, and hurt. That's the larger story part. We can then separate the doer from the deed and see the gifts of personal growth hidden in all the pain, betrayal, and hurt.
You guys are awfully very quiet about forgiveness, as
No.
as
Well,
all of
because
our minds are
have,
going.
All of us have something to forgive. I mean,
course.
I know we all. I
We
don't
talked
think
about
any of
this
us
last week, this
are
whole
walking
idea of-
around
of
not
for-
with something not that they haven't
Could
forgiven.
you go back to your one thing, just because I wanted to see if I.
Oops. Which one?
No,
Wait,
no.
I'm going backwards.
No, I want you to go forward. There was one person. No,
What was it?
sorry. No, it was
Was
the
it-
very last thing. Was that the very last one?
We can separate the doer from the deed and see the gift of personal growth hidden in all the pain and
Okay, never
betrayal.
mind. I must have seen something else. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So first step, we must want to forgive even though we may not know how. It's powerful to ask for help in our prayer work, and reward is freedom and soul making. Beyond any earthly damage, our spiritual beingness is always whole. Hold on, just got to check. So I guess it takes a decision first that you want to do it. I mean, and what they're saying is if you make the decision that you want to do it, you have to want to do it, then you're going to be given all the help that you require from Spirit.
And sometimes you don't. I mean, I've held on to stuff for years.
Yeah, well, you have to
That I
do it in your
refused
good
to.
time. You
I
can't
didn't
just,
wanna do it.
it's not like lip service. You can't just say, oh, I forgive this, you know. It's not. It's
You mature through it. You
Oh,
just allow
interesting.
yourself
What
to.
did I do?
Yes,
That
Beth?
was it. What?
Can you just please clarify what it means, soul making? In the first step?
Here, we must want to forgive even though we may not know how. It is powerful to ask for our help in our prayer. The reward is freedom and soul making.
Because we use soul as subjective and they're using soul differently there.
Yeah, they're using it more like Thomas More used it. Like it's like enriching your soul. All right.
Yeah.
Beyond
Enriching
anything.
your- I always had to say, because we discussed it, remember, Roberto?
Yeah.
Or is that law? Oh.
I
Law
think,
or
I think
soul?
what they're saying is it's enriching your soul. Well, it would be enriching your subconscious too. All right. So I think it would be enriching because you would be
Yeah.
clearing it out. All right. Remember that most forgiveness also involves self-forgiveness, and I think you'll find that out. We have an exercise that we're going to give you.
Oh, yeah. Ooh,
Remember, forgiveness is not rationalizing or retreating from true feelings. It is embracing feelings and expanding to new dimensions, which equals transcendence. So yeah, it's not about like, oh, I'm not going to feel this, or
Right.
I'm going to like figure out, you know, why I feel this, and it's okay that I feel this. It's not okay that I feel. It's not like figuring it out with your brain, you know, your analytical mind. It's not. It's you've got to let your feelings. You can never retreat from your feelings, but it's embracing your feelings and expanding to new dimensions, which makes sense. Once you've embraced your feelings and looked at them and felt them, then you can say, okay, now I want to move from this. I want to move through this. Yeah, it's what Joe Dispenza's work is all about, is the thing to get to the thing and then realize you want to let it go, that you don't want to stay back in that energy of whatever the traumatic event was or whatever that you were having the experience from that was causing you not to forgive, that was causing you to stay in the energy. So, but you can't do it if you don't feel it first. Yes?
Well, having been through, you know, that type of experience, and I talked about in the past, the murder experience and the whole thing, I can so easily say that, or a betrayal, or whatever you personally went through. It comes back on occasion, but it doesn't have the emotional charge. I don't think forgiveness, in my experience, is ever, I mean, you can totally forgive, but then sometimes somebody will do something and you'll say something mean back and you remember this experience or something like that. But there's no but like you said, there's no emotional charge.
The emotional
it's
charge.
Almost like, yeah, it's almost like
Let me
saying,
have one
hey,
too.
you're not perfect. You've got this too going on. It's a continual lifetime
Experience.
process.
Process. A
It
process.
it's
I
a
agree.
non-ending. That all of a sudden you get it out and
No.
you've forgiven yourself, but it goes on, and it doesn't mean you feel bad about it anymore. It just means that. It just means it comes up in your life. No matter, you never do. I don't know. Do we have that thing about the forget? You don't
Yeah,
forget.
No, you don't forget, and you don't. But the emotional charge gets less, right?
And
Right, or not even.
you
be there.
remember it differently. We call it in inner child work. We reframe, we reclaim it, and we rename it. So that definitely when it comes back up again, you have named it something different so that, oh, wow, and it comes up for a moment, but it doesn't have that power that dominated your life at one time, or could have. Yes, Rita?
Interesting. I don't know why it's not going to the next thing. I don't know if I want it to go to the next thing. Hold on. Oh, no, because that's next week. Okay. All right. So first we want to do is read this little introduction by Emmett Fox, and we'll read it together, and we'll see if we agree with what he says. Emmett Fox wrote the book, a lot of different books. He was a unity minister, probably more did he write spiritual economics? Was that Emmett Fox? No. But he wasn't a unity minister. So let's just see what he has to say about forgiveness and see if we agree. Yeah, agree with him or not agree with him is fine. Let's just read it, okay?
Okay, so we're going to start here.
Yeah,
So
that's fine.
One paragraph at a time.
Yeah, one paragraph at a time.
As we repeat the Lord's Prayer intelligently, considering and meaning what we say, we're suddenly, so to speak, caught up off our feet and grasped as though in a vise, so that we must face this problem, and there is no escape. We must positively and definitely extend forgiveness to everyone to whom it is possible that we can owe forgiveness, namely to anybody who we think we ever injured in any way. Jesus leaves no room for any possible glossing of this fundamental thing.
Notice that Jesus does not say, "Forgive me my trespasses, and I will try to forgive others." Or, "I will see if it can be done." Or, "I'll forgive generally with certain exceptions." He obliges us to declare that we have actually forgiven and forgiven all. And he makes our claim to our own forgiveness to depend upon that.
Okay. Umberto?
Roberto?
Umberto. You need the microphone.
No.
Put it
No,
up to your mouth.
Umberto, not Mike. All right. You must forgive everyone who has ever hurt you if you want to be forgiven yourself. That is the long and short of it. You have to get rid of all resentment and condemnation of others, and not least of self-condemnation and remorse. You have to forgive yourself, but you cannot forgive yourself sincerely until you have forgiven others first. Having forgiven others, you must be prepared to forgive yourself too, for to refuse to forgive oneself is only spiritual pride.
Stop right there. It's only spiritual pride. What do you think that means? To refuse to forgive yourself is only spiritual pride. You must be prepared to forgive yourself too, for to refuse to forgive yourself is spiritual pride. I never heard the expression spiritual pride.
It reminds me of being a martyr. Like, I'm so good, I forgave them.
Yeah. Anybody else? No? Who was next? Go ahead.
There are few people in the world who have not at some time or other been hurt, really hurt, by someone else, or been disappointed, or injured, or deceived, or misled. Such things sink into the memory, where they usually cause inflamed and festering wounds, and there is only one remedy. They have to be plucked out and thrown away. And the one and only way to do that is by forgiveness.
If your prayers are not being answered, search your consciousness and see if there is not someone whom you have yet to forgive. Do you think that you can afford this? Of course, no one can afford such a thing, and so the way is clear. You must cut all such ties by a clear and spiritual act of forgiveness. You must loose him and let him go. By forgiveness, you set yourself free.
So, thoughts on Emmett Fox? Emmett Fox also wrote The Mental Equivalent, that little book that we have up front.
And once again, these people, especially in Unity and stuff, they have a lot of Christian background, and
Yeah.
so they
Well,
use these. But even in Unity or anything else, they're all metaphors. I've studied with
This
these.
is a metaphysical translation of the Lord's Prayer.
Totally, Unity
if-
is. But if I sat in a Unity church, they say we're cousins. Science of mind. Minus the, we don't have a doctrine that we use the Bible that much. I mean, we use it, but it's not it's their main thing. If you speak at their center, you must
Quote from the Bible.
quote from the Bible. If you're going to be a speaker, you can
But it's
talk about anything you
metaphysical.
want.
It's not. It's metaphorical, metaphysical Bible. It's not like
Yeah.
it's not what you're thinking when you think of the Bible. No, it's the same Bible. It's just translating the stories. It's like what we were just.
Oh, how they turn.
It's like no, it's the person who translates the Bible is what we're talking about. The person that right intuits it. So in just like we were talking about the creation story or the story of Eden, like we were talking about it, right? We weren't saying that there actually was an Adam and an Eve and the rib came out, and we don't take it literally. We look at it as a metaphor for something, some metaphorical story that's trying to tell us. Like Jesus' parables, they were metaphorical stories to get a point across.
And that women owe themselves to me for the rest of their life because you took one of my ribs. Man's rib, you took our ribs to be. That's how great.
Whatever the story
I think
was.
there are people that have interpreted that way. By the way,
Any other thoughts?
let's move.
All right, I want to move on. Okay, so we're going to work on this, but then you're going to take it home with you. Okay, so a pattern for forgiveness. Who's the next person to read? Janet.
Okay. Pattern for forgiveness. As Emmett Fox tells us in his essay Forgiveness, there is no possible way we can get around the absolute necessity for forgiveness if we expect to progress in our spiritual development. That means, first, complete forgiveness of everyone against whom we harbor any resentment at all, and second, complete forgiveness of ourselves.
Do you have your glasses?
Yeah, well, you can read the last one there, and then we'll go into the
I
exercise.
just want to make sure. Oh, that's only long distance.
Right,
Okay,
I can-
before Adara starts, though, does that seem like a tall order? First, complete forgiveness of everyone against whom we harbor any resentment at all? It seems like a big order, right? But he's saying we have to. Why? We have to because, well, we don't have to do anything. But if we want to continue our evolution and our expansion of our soul, that would be necessary because we would be harboring and we wouldn't be living in love, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I thought of, I think of this all the time. What if I let go of every resentment, all my grudges, even if it's only for a moment when I'm thinking that, it feels as though I am almost floating. Because there is such a great, I'm talking about to forgive everything. Yeah. And I went, everything? Because there's still stuff that, it's not that I'm not forgiving it, I just haven't quite released it all the way, and I keep it around I'm thinking everything. Every grudge, not big stuff, little stuff on a daily basis that we think is so unforgivable at work or any other place, somebody said that, and then you hold on to that for the day. I'm thinking, what if you just let it all go? I'm thinking, oh my God, how much room we would have to do such great things.
Yeah, so go ahead, Adora. Second paragraph.
If you will participate fully in the exercise which follows, you may find that you've discovered a tool for dumping all that cumbersome, unhealthy baggage from yesterday that you've been carrying around. No one needs see anything you write here unless you choose to share it yourself.
Yeah. So that's going to be the important part of this exercise, and we're going to go through it, but you're going to take it home with you because nobody needs to see this. It'll help you be
Yes.
more honest unless you want to share it. If you want to share it, then that's another thing, but you don't have to. So it's like writing in your diary. Nobody sees your diary, so you can kind of say anything you want to say. At least you hope nobody sees your diary. But yeah, go ahead.
So what came up for me was, this sounds like it could get really boring, like I did a good amount of work and yeah, before my dad died, I really wanted to have some peace, like for me to feel peaceful. Like he thought I was a great daughter and I thought he was just really a difficult person for me, but I also felt really close. But I'm just like I'm so used to the patterns of some of the self-criticism too. I'm like, oh, that would be interesting. Like, yeah, so that boring part was like surprising that kind of showed like, oh, it could get really quiet.
Oh, wow. That's a great discovery.
Wow. Isn't it nice? That doesn't always feel like, isn't it great, this thing called awareness? I mean, so many people in life, and we go through our days, and I did throughout my life, different parts of my life, to be this aware, to be able to call it up, these things that come up, and then to actually not call up and then leave, call them and say, oh, wow, that's really odd that came up. I guess I need to take just a little moment with it. Very nice, very nice.
Okay, so this is what you're going to do, should you choose. To begin the exercise, relax, center yourself, take a long look backward over your life, and remember 3 people, living or dead, whom you have never been able to forgive for some hurt they inflicted on you. List these 3 people below, the events you associate with them, and your hurt feelings and judgments of the time and event. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to pick 3.
Or if you don't have them, I mean, just
Well,
go
yeah,
naturally.
Go naturally with it. You don't have to do it right now because we don't have enough time. They're not going to do it. Well, if they want to do it right now, but we only have 10 minutes.
I think it would be good just to do this first part, and then you'll go through the second part.
All right.
Just to get it down.
Well,
It doesn't
okay,
mean
then I'm going
all-
to center them, all right? Because
Yeah,
they're
it
supposed
doesn't
to
mean
center.
to flush it out.
All right,
It
let's
means
just
to
take
get
a
little
moment
something
then.
on the paper.
All right, let's
so you
just take a
can go home with
moment
it.
to center ourselves then. And to be open and willing, should we choose to do this exercise, to know that it's for our edification and that we're safe and that we are totally safe and that we are totally intuiting spirit and that life force, that God within us is just surrounding us, infusing us and expanding us, right, as we make this decision to do this exercise. And so I know that it all unfolds perfectly. So let's just do it.
start on this so that you can take it home, and we'll aha it next week as we go from here to there.
So you're going to continue to work on this at home, and should you choose, and then the second part of it, hold on a second, hold the mic at the same time. So part 2 is to choose one and the event from your list. In the blank space below, write a letter to the chosen person following this pattern. Recall the event, how it hurt you, and what your feelings were and have remained. Write your forgiveness of this hurt and its erasure from your mind now, and acknowledge this person's contribution to your life through what you learned from this experience, and praise the person with love. So, this reminds me of that one minister's forgiveness thing about letting them go, being able to let them go with love, to send them to their highest good at the end of it, so that you're not praising what they did, you're just allowing them to release them, basically. Right. Does that make sense? Yeah, and then part 3, now write another letter, this time to yourself. Forgive yourself completely for any contribution you may have made to this unhappy event and for your unforgiving thoughts or judgments since that time. Dear me. Okay?
It's interesting, Rita, that she was saying the person and then or the event. And so I sat there for just a second to see what came up, and I was thinking it was something with my mom, but it wasn't about, well, it is about forgiving, but it was the event. It was the thing that happened at that time. That it was, so it didn't feel like a whole blanket, like, oh, this forgiveness is just, oh, you still have some unforgiveness about that time, that event that took place, opposed to, I gotta forgive her for everything. It was just that one moment. So there is something about forgiving the events, the experiences of our life, those moments of our life. Interesting.
So, and then part 4 is the completion of it. In the process of writing your letters, some condition or attitude in your life or some personal quality of yours may have surfaced which you would like to change. Write a treatment below for the healing of this condition, attitude, or quality. This is your private treatment, and you won't be handing it in, okay? So what I would invite you to do is just to spend time with it, meditate on it every day, and allow yourself to really go through the process of forgiving, to really actually go through it and say to yourself when, like they said at the beginning, to make the decision that you want to do it, and then trust that you will do it and that you are doing it, and then allow yourself the process. And don't rush yourself. Next week you'll just check in and let us know how it went. You're not going to tell us what the situation is unless you choose to or whatever, but you'll just let us know how it was. And so if you don't finish it this week, I would make it an ongoing process. Just make it part of your spiritual practice so that you now have another tool to use, another level to go deeper within yourself, right?
Yeah, I think it's
so.
great.
And I wanted to give you these. Where are they?
I don't know.
There
they are. I'll pass these out while you tell them about that last project thing.
I'm doing it next week. Do you remember the final project that you're going to do what was it? Yeah. Right. Remember you made an intention at the beginning of the class that you're just going to do like a final project that represents where you are with that. You each made an intention at the beginning of the class that you wanted to complete by the end of the class. But just make one now. All right. And artistic representation means it could be anything. It could be a poem, an essay, a dance, it could be anything. A talk, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be like, if you're not an artistic person, it doesn't mean like, remember Emma stood up here with her stained glass window. It's not asking you to do that. Anyway, these were how many people are there? There's 8 of us. If Bruce,
doing the last week?
yeah, that's all we're going to do the last week.
Okay.
You could go. You. Yeah, no more than 5 to 7 minutes, I would say. Yeah. No, 2 weeks. The 18th, whatever that is, whatever that last Wednesday is. Okay, and this is just for your reading. It's just kind of more about the inclusivity thing that we discussed tonight. All right, that's just for you. If you have any questions after you read it, let us know next time. And then, so how to change your life, 62 to 64, 151 to 180. And then your prayers, I don't know if you're still doing them, but if you are. And then experience the principle of spiritual inclusivity that we worked on, and then the forgiveness exercise, which I think is the most important thing. And then those handouts if you want to read them and if you have questions when you come back. I will send you these slides.
Yeah, I'll be curious just to see, process and feelings of how it felt to work with this, more than even the details of it, right? It's that whole process. What did you feel while working with it all week?
All right. I will send you this. You don't need to worry. I'll send it to you. And I'll
It
also
went
send
out.
you Dr. James's talk and the links to the class. And you know what? If the links don't come in right away, I'll send this before, because usually I wait for them to come in. But I won't worry about that, because sometimes Rob has a little technical stuff happening. And we do appreciate you, Rob. Let's give him a some applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the loving energy you give this. All right, so let's just take a deep breath. Just relax into this moment. And I recognize the amazing spirit and presence of the divine that has been present tonight and continues with us as we move through this night and into our lives. I know that tonight has been rich, and there has been expansion happening, and this loving energy that has been present here, and I truly feel it has assisted us as we continue to grow and to learn and to be and to give and to receive and to be the most beautiful, amazing, abundant beings of light in this world. So I know that all this good work that we are putting in, I know that it comes back to us 100-fold in amazing, rich experiences. And I know that we are constantly attracting the good, that we are constantly opening up to the more, and that anything in our life that would need any kind of revealing of truth or healing, as we call it, or revealing more truth, is already done in the mind of God. And I know that as we take this forgiveness exercise from here, I know that we are divinely protected, guided, that we are safe, that all is well, and that really in the divine mind, it's already done. So I know that we are just awakening more and more to this experience of loving ourselves and loving others, and bringing everything into that one heart, that one energy, that one source that is the very essence of who we are and who everyone is. So I know it's good, and I am so grateful for this night and for all that has transpired, for the safety, for the protection, for the unfolding, for all of it, and the expansion. I'm grateful for it all, and I know that it is done perfectly for each and every person here individually, and for the collective consciousness at the same time. So I am grateful, grateful, grateful as I release my word, as I let it go as law, and we can anchor it by affirming together, and so it is.